fellow diamond painting addicts, and welcome back to Diamond Painting Anonymous. I'm Daphne, and I'm here today for a much requested video. I probably should have made this long before now, but I've had a few things going on recently, so I'm getting to it now. I actually covered this at the beginning of a whip and chat a little bit, but not very in depth. So since I've had so many people asking for it, I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and do it now, and I'll try to give you all the information I can. So what am I covering today? I am covering how to load your pen with glue dots, glue lines, and or putty. Like I said, I get a ton of requests about this. My diamond painting changed so much once I discovered glue dots and putty. So if I can help anybody make their experience better by learning how to do these, I want to do that, hence today's video. And I'm going to try to give you all of the tips and tricks that I remember, but if you have a tip or trick that I don't mention, then feel free to leave a comment down below. I always love it when other commenters can help other diamond painters out. I want this to be a community where we help each other. So yeah, leave me a comment if I forget something. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to cover both loading single placers and multi-placers. So if one or the other doesn't interest you, feel free to skip to that section of the video. One of the tips that someone told me that I always forget because I don't use the pink wax anymore is if you have a tip that has had pink wax in it, you need to clean out the tip with like alcohol or something because the wax can leave a residue. And because the wax is non-stick, if that residue is in there and then you try to stick in the glue, whether it's dots or lines or whatever, it won't stick either. It will continue to fall out. So most of these have only had glue dots or putty in them. Like I said, I don't use the pink wax anymore, so I forget about that tip because I don't use the pink wax. Also, something to note, I use a variety of different tips. Some of these tips, like this barrel, is one that I got from Everlasting Tips. These all-in-one steel ones are usually, for me, cat-eared. I just look up cat-eared steel tips on Amazon. I get it in a pack of 6 usually. And then I have a variety of multi-placers. The ones like these I usually get on Amazon. These are the Diamond Art Club ones. For the Everlasting Tips, I do have some. This is an Everlasting Tip multi-placer. For Everlasting Tips, but if you use tweezers, that voids the warranty, so just be aware. I'm not bothered by that. If I need to replace them because they get scratched up or whatever, then I'll do that. They're stainless steel, they're metal. If they're not stainless, I don't care if the inside gets scratched up. And honestly, I've been doing this long enough, I've never had a problem with it. So, but just so you know, rather than using tweezers that might scratch it up, if you're using the Everlasting Tips, you can use a toothpick. And I do use a toothpick for the putty, so I'll explain that when I get there. So I often get asked, how many glue dots do you need? And that depends on a couple of things. One is the size of your glue dots. These in this package are the mini glue dots. The ones on this roll are the micro glue dots. And I've been using these, I'm getting kind of close to the end of the roll here, but this is, I think I've had this for almost 3 years now. And if I run out, I still have all of these. And these were a couple of bucks on Amazon. You can find them in almost any craft shop. So cheap and easy. You can find them almost anywhere. How do you get the glue dots into your single placer tip? Because that's the only place I use the glue dots is in my single placers. I do not use the glue dots in my multi placers. That is for these two, which I will explain later. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. These are just 3 pins I picked out of my case that don't have anything loaded in them, so I can show you how I do it. This is the pin I'm currently using. I have a glue dot in the single placer tip, well, multiple glue dots, and then I have putty in the multi-placer tip. I always have a pin that has a straightener on it. This one has glue dots in it as well. Honestly, this one gets more for straightening than anything else. I don't usually use it to actually place drills, so I have the mini and the micro. I'm going to continue using the micro just because that's what I already have open. So it comes in a roll like this, or this one, it just comes on little sheets and you can pull them off however you want to do it. I told you it depended on 2 things. One is the size of your glue dots and one is the size of the well inside the tip. These are different sizes. I can tell you from experience, the barrel of this Everlasting Tip is not as deep as the barrel on this cat-eared all-in-one. So typically what I do, and I use the cat eared most often. So typically what I do is I take 3 to 4 glue dots. And I don't know if you can see them here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to take my tweezers and pull them off. So I just take the glue dot and I kind of scrunch it in my tweezers, and I will just do that with 4 of them. Now, the reason I use 4 is because, again, I know the cat ear tip is pretty deep, and if I have too much, I can always just cut off the excess. So I will get 4 of them on my tweezers like this, and then I just take them in my hand and kind of roll them into a little bit of a snake between my thumb and forefinger. So it ends up looking like this. Hopefully you can see that if it's in focus. And then I'm literally just going to take my tweezers and shove it into the tip. And you just push the glue dots down into the tip and keep pushing. Now, it's cold here today, so these glue dots are a little bit stiff. And I'm just going to keep pushing until I think I've got the well filled. And again, different tips will have different depths. Even some of the cat eared, they're not exactly the same. I don't know if I've gotten different runs or whatever, but I just use my tweezers and I push, and then I will take my thumb and kind of smush it down in there. Very scientific, obviously. And then I will just keep pushing until I feel like I've gotten the well filled up as much as I can. And then I will look and see where I'm at. Now, on this particular tip, I probably only needed 3 because you can see it's squishing out, again, a very scientific term, the end. So when that happens, all I'm going to do is take a pair of scissors and I'm just going to carefully cut off that excess. You can save this excess if you want and put it in another tip. Like I'm actually going to take this right now, try and warm it up a little bit here. And then I'm going to take my tweezers and see if it will fit into my everlasting tip here, just so I'm not wasting the excess. And you can see here, I hope anyway, that this tip is definitely not as deep as the other one because I'm just using the excess that I took off of that tip and I've pretty much filled up this one. So there you can see, that's sort of what you want it to look like. Hopefully that is focused. That's sort of what you want it to look like. It's okay if it rounds outside the tip a little bit. It doesn't have to be completely flat, but you don't want it really coming out of the top of the tip. Now, this is extremely sticky. What happens is, once you have it like this, if you just immediately start trying to place drills, the glue dots adhesive is stronger than the poured glue on the canvas. And so what you'll find happening is that the drill will stick to your pen and won't come off on the canvas. So what you have to do is what I call dirtying up the tip. And basically what we're going to do, or at least what I do, is you can see they kind of look white. The glue dots were clear. They kind of turn white when you put them in there. What I'm going to do is just dot them on some fabric to pick up some lint. Usually my blue jeans, I'm wearing a knit sweater today. This is maybe a little too linty. Usually just on my jeans or something to get them dirtied up. Because what that's going to do is those fibers are going to adhere to the glue. The glue is still sticky. I can still feel it with my fingers that it's still sticky, but it just takes the tackiness level down enough that while you can still pick up drills, they will stick to the canvas rather than sticking to your pen. You have to get a feel for how much you have to dirty them up. That depends on how many glue dots you've used, possibly. It may depend on other factors, the fabric that you're dabbing them on to pick up the lint. If it's not very linty, you may have to do it multiple times versus doing something using a piece of fabric like this where there's a lot of loose fibers that it can pick up. So that is how I load my glue dots. And I will say that what I usually do at the beginning of a project is pick out a pen or pens that I'm going to use. And then I load everything, my glue dots, my putty, whatever. And then that's the pen I use for the whole project. So for instance, this was the pen that I used for, well, it's the pen that I've been using because this is a tip that I like for round kits and all the ones I've been doing are round. So I've used this pen on my gnome. I have used this pen on the Muka, and I have used this pen on my conversation one that I'm doing. And I didn't replace it until probably 1.5 of those projects. So typically when I fill up these at the beginning of a project, whatever I have will last me until whatever the end of that project is. And again, that's why I like the glue dots so much, because they last me so much longer and I don't have to refill them. Something else that you'll find as you're going through a project and you're working is that your glue dots may become less tacky. And that's because they're picking up dirt and dust off of the drills as well. So in that case, if I find that it's not sticking enough, what I can do is just go back in with my tweezers and try to refresh it. So I'll just pull it up a little bit and then I'll let it just kind of settle back down in there, maybe push it with my thumb or whatever. Or if it's gotten super dirty and it's just not really sticking at all, no matter how much I try to refresh it, I will pull it all the way out and rotate it, because the tip here is going to be dirty. It's going to have dirt on it from you picking up lint, from dirt and dust off of the drills, etc. So you pick it up and basically just do a 180, and then this part that's been hidden down here inside the single placer tip will be cleaner, and you can flip it over and then use that side and make your glue dots last even longer. So that's how to use the glue dots. I'm going to talk about putty first just because it's easier, and then we'll talk about glue lines. So for putty, you can use scented putty, you can use unscented putty, you can use the Diamond Art Club putty, you can buy putty on Etsy, Amazon, you can buy this museum putty, you can use blue tack. Anything that's sticky like that is going to work. I've tried a whole bunch of different things, and this is the one that I liked the best as far as putty goes. So basically it just comes in this package of putty, and you just pull off pieces and use them. So I've got a piece already pulled off here, and I just use my fingers and roll it into like a little snake, because I'm going to be putting it in the multiplacer. And then I just put it on top of the multiplacer and push down with my thumb until I can see the top of the multiplacer. I kind of slide my thumb across the top, and then I'm just going to pull. And then I'm going to do the same thing from this side. And now you can see I've got putty loaded in there. Now, is it perfectly even? No. I do try to make sure and look around all of the edges of the tip to make sure there's nothing hanging over. But now I've got putty loaded in this tip, and I can use that to pick up my drills. And you can see here from this one that I've been using, at least I hope you can see the drill indentations where I've been picking up drills. And then after I've used the putty for a while, I might feel like I need to refill it. Maybe it's gotten too compressed or something. Sometimes you can just like run your tweezers through it and kind of refresh it. Usually, again, this stuff is super cheap. I think it's like $4 for this package was what I paid. And I've had it for over a year. And just that little corner that you saw is all I've used. And I do a lot of diamond painting. So it lasts for a long time, just like the glue dots. And it's pretty inexpensive, which was one of the reasons I liked it. The thing with putty, and part of the reason that I started trying the glue lines, is because it can be temperature sensitive. Living in Kansas, it got very warm during the summer. And so in the summer months, I would notice, even though I was inside in air conditioning, it would get kind of gummy and sticky. And so if I had anything hanging over the edge and I would touch the canvas, sometimes it would stick to the canvas. This putty is white, so generally if I could smear it around with my tweezers or something, it would be hidden enough that even though it was on there, you couldn't really see it. But it just, when it gets stringy and gummy like that, it's frustrating to work with. So what I would usually do is take one of my pens, just pen and all with the putty in the tip, just pop it into the refrigerator or the freezer, either one, but usually just the refrigerator for 10-15 minutes. And that would get the putty kind of cold enough that it would reharden a bit so it wouldn't be quite so sticky. And I wouldn't have near the problems with it getting on the canvas. It was during the summer when I was complaining about the putty and how it was getting gummy and things and it's temperature sensitive that someone asked me if I'd ever tried glue lines. And I said, no, what are glue lines? So I went out and just did some searching on Amazon and I found glue lines. These are by the same people that make the glue dots, but they're just what it says. It's a line of glue rather than a dot of glue. Now, admittedly, I am not the best at this yet because I've only done this a couple of times. So you can see how many you get here. And it comes on these rolls, just like the glue dots, but again, It's a line of glue, so you can see the whole line of glue. And as with the glue dots, I usually use more than one. It depends on the size of your multiplacer though. So for instance, this one, which I think is an 8 from Diamond Art Club, I probably would use 2 because I don't think one would fill up the multiplacer completely. This one is only a 6 placer, but it is smaller. It's shorter, but it's deeper. See how deep the well is on that one? It's quite deep. So I probably would use 2 glue lines. So I'm going to do the same thing that I would do with the glue dots. I'm going to peel off one of the lines with my tweezers, and then I'm going to get a second one, and I'm going to try to leave them kind of like they are as a line, but I am going to like roll them a little bit just so I can kind of have them in a shape that makes sense to put in the multiplacer, if that makes sense. And then this is still just kind of a process of trial and error for me, just trying to shove as much as I can in there. Because they're so expensive, if I end up having more than I need and I need to trim off like I did with the tips, it's not a big deal to me because they're not expensive. So I'm not going to be very precious with them, if that makes sense. Okay, that actually went a lot better than I thought it would. So you can see in looking at the edges here, it's sticking up a little bit. So I just press it with my thumb. And while I'm pressing down, I'm also pressing sideways to just kind of smooth it out so that the glue lines are distributed evenly throughout the tip. Like it looks like there's more space there. So I'm just going to use my tweezers and kind of fill in that space. And then again, shove it over with my hands. And then after I've done that, see, do I have any overhang anywhere? If I do, try to clean that up. And then is it fairly even across the top, which it looks to be. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to do the same thing with my multiplacer that I did with the single tips. And that is I'm going to dirty them up because again, the glue lines are made of the same stuff and the adhesive in them likely will be stronger. The bond will be stronger between this and the drill than the poured glue and the drill and the canvas. And you don't want them, you just want it to stick to your pen long enough for you to pick the drills up, but you want them to stay on the canvas. So I'm going to dirty it up a bit, pull off some of the strings there because I don't need those. And if you're worried about strings getting on your drills, don't. Once you get the glue dots or the glue lines dirtied up and you start using them, it's going to pick up dirt from the drills anyway. You'll never see it. So that looks pretty dirty to me. So let me put these back in the box. And then I'm going to go grab some drills and we're going to test out how well I did. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so I just picked up some green drills here. I'm just going to put those in my tray. And then we're going to see, did I dirty them up enough? So there's that. And sometimes you can tell how good the glue is just by seeing how easily they pick off your pen. This one I did pretty good. They're coming off pretty easily. Let's see how I did with this one. Because what you might run into is sometimes, again, if you haven't dirtied up the tip enough of the glue dots, then you may find yourself, like when you try to pull the drill off, the glue dot tries to come with it. That's a sign, if that happens, that you need to dirty up your glue dot more. So same thing with my putty here. See how easily that picks them up. And then you can see already I've got some indentations here from picking up the drills in the putty. But that's okay because that actually makes it easier. The next time you pick them up, the drills will naturally settle into those little spots. Let's try my glue lines and see how I did here. And you can see there I've picked them up. Oh, and they're all coming off pretty easily. So I think I did okay with this one. Maybe there's a little bit of excess. Ooh, that one wanted to stick a little bit. Might be a little bit of excess. I just need to. And as you work and you pick up drills, you'll be pushing those glue dots or glue lines into the tip. So eventually it will get to where it's picking everything up really nicely. I hope all of that was in focus. Let me try this and I'll just check and make sure that you guys can see. Not the greatest in line, but I didn't pick up all of them either. Let me shake these again. So hopefully you can see that. There you go. They're all in line. So when I place them down on my canvas, they're all going to be in a line. So there you go, guys. Again, one of my most requested videos. I just thought somebody else had covered this already, so there was no need for me to do it, but Admittedly, this has been a trial and error process for me as well. So just sharing with you guys how I do things. Again, your mileage may vary, but this is how I do it. As with everything else, I encourage you to just try it. If it doesn't work for you, no harm, no foul. These are all pretty inexpensive. If it works for you, then awesome, because I just find that the glue and putty has made my life so much easier and my diamond painting so much more enjoyable. I am, as I always say, a hard placer, so I press pretty hard on drills, whether I'm single or multi-placing. And I was constantly going through the pink wax. I mean, I literally felt like every third drill I was having to refill my pen when using the pink wax. So having something like this where I can do almost an entire project or an entire project and then some without having to refill my pen at all is amazing. Oh, and I almost forgot. When I want to remove them at the end of the project, it's basically the same thing except in reverse. So you're just gonna use your tweezers or your toothpick or whatever and pull out the tips for the single tips, pull out the glue dots or whatever. And then for the putty, for the glue lines, I probably would use a tweezer as well, but for the putty, I usually will just take a toothpick and just kind of dig through the putty. It will stick to itself and I can just kind of scrape all the sides and make sure that when the putty comes out, nothing is left behind. So at the end, I just have a very nice clean tip because this tip had putty in it once upon a time. So toothpicks, tweezers, whichever you're more comfortable with. Like I said, I know the Everlasting Tips lady specifically states that can void any kind of warranty if you use tweezers with hers. I'm not bothered by it. I have enough multi-placers and single placer tips that I have extras if I scratch anything up. So far, knock on wood, that has not happened and I've not had to worry about it. So there you go, guys. That is how I load my pins with glue dots, putty, or glue lines, depending on what I'm feeling at the time. Right now, I've been using the putty in my multi-placers just because I'm someplace where it's cold and so it's not been gummy or sticky. And it's just a little bit easier to work with than the glue lines. But they both work equally well. I just think putting the putty in is a little bit faster, if that makes a difference to you. And like I said, if I've done anything here that you think, oh, wait a minute, that I didn't answer, please ask that question below. If you have a tip that you would like to share with everyone, please add that as a comment below too. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end of the video, guys. Before you leave, don't forget to do all the things. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can be informed of future uploads. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching.